First of all, I miss you both. And thank you. Thank you for instilling everything in me. Thank you for loving me as Candace. And thank you for teaching me what I need to know about this life today. Um, I love y'all. I miss you. And I'm most definitely grateful for the both of you. Wow. So experiencing it with her, like, she, it was hard with her. Because she became very combative. She did not want to do, what was asked of her. At one point in my life, of course, I had to get myself together just so I could take care of her. As far as lifting her, one point, me and my dad, of course, we were doing it together. Because it got to the point that she couldn't do it on her own. So she could not do anything on her own. So we pretty much had to do the lifting. We had to do the moving her around. We had to do it all. And as far as, that part, like she just could not do anything on her own. So she basically she needed help. And Helen was Helen. I can say it like that. Helen was Helen. She always had a smile regardless. But the only person she remembered was her husband. So she forgot everybody else, but she remembered her husband. And she knew his name. He always made her smile. But, and of course, it makes sense that she would remember her husband because that's who she married. That was her man, so to say. So, she loved him. Like, she loved him so much. So, of course, that's the person that she would remember.
Candace and I actually met. I made a comment on Facebook post that she made, and I think it kind of went by her then. But we met, and it was really quick how we just connected and just flew from there. I get Candace in a space where most people won't. She lets me into a space where most people can't go. I'm very honored, very grateful for that. She's not so much a very private person, but there's parts of Candace that the world will not see. And I'm honored to be in that space. So the role that I played for Candace during that time, there's this thing that being present is enough. Your presence is enough. If Candace knew I was near, Candace was okay. I was okay because Candace was okay. She's the definition of, like, she could be the poster child for all things falling apart makes you fall together. It brings it all together. She is the definition of that. And what I mean by that, on the outside looking in, everything's chaotic. Everybody's going through what they're going through. She's helping mom. She's helping dad. She's helping her siblings. Even if she keeps her distance from them, it's helping them. She has all these irons in the fire, and it looks like she's falling apart, but she's actually falling together.
So after my mom got diagnosed with Alzheimer's, I was working a job for corporate America. I was actually a teacher assistant with the school district. And I ended up getting my pink slip because they were consolidating the schools. So because of the consolidation, and then I got hired on at the end, I got my pink slip. Okay? So at that point, I didn't really know what I was going to do because I came home. I never forget it. I came home. I sat on the couch, and I told my dad. I said, "Dad, I just got fired from my job," and I was like, "Well, I don't know what to do." And because he said a lot of choice words, he was like, "Get yo up and go find a job." And as a matter of fact, I did. After I lost that job, I went for another job. Like, I went out and I started looking for a job. Could not find anything. In the meantime, my mama still has Alzheimer's. So I came home one day and I told my daddy. And at that time too, I was still staying. I was staying out because I did not live here. I was living like in the city of Starkville. But y'all, I came home. I sat on the couch and I told my dad, I said, "Dad, I'm not going back to work. I said, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to take care of you and mama." That was my decision then, to know when she was fighting the disease. And honestly, at that time, I didn't know where my money was going to come from. I didn't know how my bills were going to get paid. But I pretty much said, I'm going to just take care of you and mama. My daddy gave me the unction. He said, "Well, don't move out the house." He said, "Don't move out the apartment yet." He said, "We'll take care of that." He said, I put you out for a reason." And I'm like, "Well, Dad, I think I've learned my lessons enough that I can come back home." He said, "No." He said, "I need you to stay out a little bit longer." So I ended up, doing that. And then not knowing, because we knew that the disease was going to get worse. Like, we had all the faith that we had. We still knew with the disease that it was going to get worse. And honestly, in hopes that I thought that she would be healed of it, she got her healing when she died, But in the meantime, I made up my mind that I was going to be the one to take care of them full time. There was a fight between us trying to, keep her here versus put her in a home. And the wishes, of course, for my parents, they both wanted to pass away here. After talking to them and having those conversations. So, of course, being that I'm the single one, I don't have a family, no kids, but my other siblings do. We decided just to keep her at home. So, of course, hospice, we would pull out just in case. For example, if my daddy got sick, we would bring in people from the church to come help. Like, I had extra help. So I had sitters, I had extra people coming in, dealing with, of course, the church and community. They would come in to be of help as much as they could. But the fight for us to really keep her here, it was just that, of course, they didn't like the home, being in a nursing home or anything like that. And then that's what I say, like, as far as making jokes about putting people in nursing homes, like, that's just not what I do. Like, I get really, really irritated when I hear families say, "I'm going to put you in a home. I'll put you in a home." No. And I understand every family has their own issues and all that stuff, and people have their lives. But my life was put on hold to take care of my parents. So the decision was for us to just keep them at home. And it was, of course, it was a fight because we all have misunderstandings. As a family, we will have misunderstandings. Everybody won't understand that. But when you have parents who want to pass away at their home, I think that their wish should always come true. Like, just, let them pass away home. And that's what we ended up, staying here. And I ended up coming back here so I could do what I needed to do to make sure that they were taken care of. Dad, of course, he had his own health issues as well. But Daddy, I do remember this clearly, like, Daddy, this so clear, like, Daddy was in the hospital. Mom was still fighting Alzheimer's, and there was that extra help, of course. But in the meantime, while Dad was fighting his own health issues, there was a time where, like of course with family, coming in as well. But daddy had his own stuff going on as well. In the meantime, while he was trying to be a husband to his wife, he was trying to be a support to his wife. So, in the midst of her fighting Alzheimer's, daddy, there were times that daddy got sick, that daddy had to be admitted into the hospital. There was a time when daddy ended up having to go into the nursing home because of his sickness. And she was still here fighting the disease as well. There were times where, he needed support too. So it was a double edged thing where we needed, all of us to come together as one, to be of support, to each other. But daddy had his own health issues as well. He was diagnosed with dementia. He was dealing with high blood pressure and cholesterol, the normal things that we all go through. And plus, back in the day, he had strokes as well. So, and strokes oftentimes lead to seizures. So he was going through his own fight as well, and then taking care of his wife too. I'll never forget the time when he was at the Keratin, and he would call me like at 12 o'clock at night, like asking how mom was doing or wondering if she was still alive, like if she was, still here, if she was still okay. I'll never forget the time where we even brought him home and he didn't even know that he had forgotten that she had dementia. Like he had forgotten that she had, Alzheimer's, and he just, of course men are taught not to cry, right? In that nature. He cried. He was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know she was like this, da 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 da. So we ended up having to bring him home weekly just so he could get used to his wife again. But, in spite of his issues, he came home and he was like, I didn't know she was like this. Like, I don't remember her being this way. And I'm like, well, Daddy, if you feel like you need to talk to her or, just to hear her breathe, like call me on the cell phone. So he still knew how to use his cell phone. We made sure he had his phone, but it was just, I don't know, it was just seeing him in that way, like the care and the love that he had for her. Like he wanted to make sure that he was still here and she was still here too, like as far as her not leaving this earth. So mom passed in the middle of the night. So we woke up that morning and she wasn't breathing. And I do remember this clearly. My daddy, we switched it around. Daddy wanted to sleep in the other room and he put me in the room next to her. And I'm like, well, Daddy, are you sure you want me to sleep in the room with her? Because we knew that she was expiring. So I asked him, I said, Dad, are you sure you want me to sleep in the room like with her because this is your wife? We already know that she's expiring. He said, no. He said, you sleep in there. I said, okay. So the next morning we woke up and she had passed away. He did not want to make any phone calls to anybody, of course. I had to do it all. I had to call my siblings because they weren't here. So I had to make the phone call that mom had passed. For him, the process of, the telling part is of showing your strongness. He did that part as far as showing his strongness to other people. But men grieve totally different from women. So majority of the time, because I know that I am a daddy's girl, I'm a mom's girl too, but I'm most definitely a daddy's girl. There were things that I had to get out of him. There were things that we had to do to help him grieve, the loss of her. And of course, he would hold a lot in. But every once in a while, he would say, I miss my wife. Every once in a while, he'll look at a picture and he'll smile. I think a lot of what kept him together was we did videos. So we did TikToks. And I wanted to share my daddy with the world because he had already been shared with the world anyway. My daddy was an educator. He was a teacher. So he knew the community knew him and he knew the people in the community. So one thing that kept us going was doing videos and him making me laugh and I'm making him laugh, keeping him busy, that type of stuff. But honestly, I never saw my daddy cry. The only time I saw my daddy cry was when he lost his wife. And but we did whatever we could do, around here. His friends would come in, they would come see him. He was an avid golf player, so he would go, while he was up and all that, his friends would, come pick him up every once in a while to play golf. I had he had one friend that even come pick him up and take him to an Ole Miss game. And, people would make sure he would get out so I could at least have my moment, to myself as well. But honestly, as a caregiver, I didn't know what to do because that was just it. I was a caregiver. My dad, it was more so like 5 years in between, between mom's passing and my daddy passing. Between my mom between my mom passing and my dad illness. Okay, so my dad was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. He was also died. So the doctors pretty much gave him a limited time. They gave him a time where he was going to live. And of course, they said that only the good Lord knows. Hey, and she was a believer as well, which was great. We had a heart doctor who believed in God just like we did. So we ended up going to the doctor, and we got the diagnosis of congestive heart failure. Now, this was because he started complaining about chest pains at first. And chest pains is a sign of, okay, something's going to happen. He kept complaining about his chest, was hurting. And I said, well, Daddy, we got to get you to the doctor, this and that. And he was like, I don't want to go. And I'm like, yes, we got to, you got to go. And I said, so I had to remind him, like, Dad, you are an avid believer in going to the doctor, so you got to go. So I made the appointment. At that time, we had someone with us because I needed like extra help. So we did have a sitter, and they went with us to the doctor as well. That is when we got the report that he had congestive heart failure, the diagnosis, and we didn't know when he was like when he would expire. So of course during that time, Dad would get to the point of saying, okay, I miss my wife. I want to see Helen again. Like, I miss her. He'll look at the pictures like a lot and just say how, he wanted to be with her. And from what I've heard from like other stories, other people who've experienced the same thing I experienced, especially with couples like who really, really love each other, they can't go long without them, especially when one passes away. So my daddy, he put up a fight, and the fight was he wanted to live as long as he could, of course, but in the meantime, in the back of his mind, he knew that he wanted to be with Mama, and he was ready to go. He made statements that he was ready to go. He said that he was ready to go, like he was ready to go to heaven, and I knew that, okay, his time is winding down, as far as wanting to go be with Mom. So when he got that diagnosis of congestive heart failure, it was a few months later, My dad, of course, he would have anxiety attacks and he would be in and out of the hospital. We didn't know what was going on. They couldn't find nothing. So, of course, he would have like these really, really bad anxiety attacks as well. And I kind of felt like that was a part of that process too, as far as him being ready to go. But but he ended up being bedridden in April of 2023. Dad got bedridden in April of 2023. Um, and that's when he said, okay, he couldn't walk. Daddy could not go from the bed to the bathroom. And of course, I could not lift him. So his friends across the street would come over and be of help to him. It got to the point that Daddy would get out the bed and he would fall. Even with me seeing him when I'm not, I couldn't even leave him at the house by himself. It got to that point where he just could not do anything, and I knew then that, yeah, it was time for him. Like he was just ready to go. So that at that moment, like we ended up making the decision. What I did to just go ahead and say, okay, he needs to be on hospice, and there's no other way around it. He needed to be on hospice. We knew his time was winding down, and it was just time for him to go. Like he was ready to go. So, yeah. Dad passed away here at home. I'll never forget the time that we were more so in preparation of him passing away. I got the sidewalk done, and then I ended up getting a ramp done too as well, so he could easily walk down, with his walker to go outside. He wanted a new mattress, so I got him a new mattress. And I was like, okay, whatever Dad wants, that's what Dad gets. I was treating him the same way that he treated me. Because the way our parents took care of us, they made sure that we were taken care of. So whatever he wanted, that's what I got. So of course, he enjoyed the mattress for a while. He got that, we got that as well and everything like that. And I knew that because he was asking for all this stuff too as well, he was ready to go. He wanted something new. I treated my daddy like a king. He was the king. As a matter of fact, he was the king of this house. So the way, and as I watched him take care of Mama, like he took care of the queen. Well, he's the king of this house, so we took care of the king. There was a certain way that he wanted his yard cut outside. He got what he wanted. So in his transition during the year of 2023, he made the statement that he was just ready to go. He said, Candace, I'm ready to go. As a matter of fact, that was the same year that I got back into the church. Because he told me, he was like, Candace, you need to go to church. He said, I need you back in the church before I passed away. Like we had the conversations. Now, keep in mind, the Lord didn't leave me. He just wanted me to be in a space, I believe, that has support. That's that good support system. And that's what my daddy wanted. So, of course, I ended up going back in the church and just sitting and getting fed and getting the word every Sunday for that hour. And then I came back home and did what I needed to do or whatever. But he wanted to make sure I was there. So Daddy's transition was how he transitioned. Dad transitioned very smoothly. Of course, we were all together as a family. But when he closed his eyes, he closed his eyes. He left here knowing I believed that everything was going to be okay and he would be okay. But over a course of time, my daddy became my best friend. There was no other guy in my life like my father. And he was my father. He not only was he dad, he was my father. My dad helped me make decisions. My dad taught me how to run this house in his absence. My dad actually taught me how to be a young woman. There were things that my daddy taught me how to do that I believe nobody else could teach me. My daddy taught me what real love is. He did. He taught me what real love is because I watched him even with his wife. In spite of what they went through in life, he taught me that the definition of what it is. More so example of anything. But when my dad transitioned, it was most definitely like hard. Because honestly, I really thought that I wasn't gonna make it. I thought that I thought because his life was over that my life would be over too. Because he was all I had at that moment. He was my protection. He was my safe space. He was he was the man, like as my daddy. And a lot of people don't have that, I understand. But I had that as a human being, the way he was as a father to me. And even today, there's some things that I just don't settle for because of what he has taught me. So, yes.
Yeah, so Candace and I went to high school together, and which was, it was fun. We had a great high school career together. And then I guess it was years had went by. I went to college, moved away, and came back in 2006, I believe it was. And my wife and I lived here for probably 8 years before we started Bethlehem Church. And somehow or another, we reconnected. I don't remember the day we reconnected or how we reconnected, but we reconnected. And of course, I said, "You got to come to church. You got to come to church." So she showed up, and she's been there ever since. And so we just kind of picked up where we left off at high school. Yeah. So I could tell right away, Candace was extremely close to her mom and her dad, and rightly so. They were the times that I especially met her dad. Man, he's just one of the nicest guys, and so that relationship was so strong. And when she began to lose her parents, you could tell it took a weight on her. Boy, it took her to a dark place. And but she was faithful. She still came to church. She still was doing her best in her relationship with God. And so I remember coming over here and praying with her, praying with her family, and just being there for her. One of the biggest things for our church is we just really want to be there for one another, because we're all going to go through hard moments, dark moments, moments where our faith is tried, and so we were just there, man, and whatever we could do to help and encourage and just lift her up and let her know that this is a difficult time, but she's definitely going to come through it, and she's going to be okay. And I've watched that she has she's really just persevered through all that hard moments that she's been through. And it's been encouraging to me just to see her face such trying moments and come out still with so much faith and so much hope. And so I love it. I'm so thankful that I got to be a part of that.
Well, honestly, what was next for me, I didn't know what was next for me. For a year, I took some time off. I was not comfortable staying here at home. I actually stayed for holidays, and probably once a month I would stay in Airbnbs all over the place between here and North Mississippi. I stayed on the road a lot, like I was always gone, finding places to go. During that time, I really depended on my village to be of support to me. Of course, at the time that I didn't know, of course, what was going on with me, but I was diagnosed with PTSD. It's post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a disease. Well, it's a mental health issue as far as something tragic, happening to a person. And I ended up getting on anxiety medicine because for a year I had real bad anxiety attacks. I would have panic attacks. And during some moments, I would see my daddy or thinking he was with me, and he was not there. There were times that I thought that because if he wasn't here, I didn't need to be here. So what I did is I got the extra help that I needed. Of course, I've had a therapist for almost 10 years, so I've continued to seek therapy, and I also saw a psychiatrist. So I was able to get, the diagnosis, of course, and just learn how to deal with it and go through life with it. But as I always say, it's just a diagnosis. It is. It's just a diagnosis. And because I'm normal. And at one point when I did get the diagnosis of PTSD, I thought for a minute that I was crazy. And I know I'm not. I'm crazy as far as making you laugh type, sense of humor type crazy. But not mentally ill crazy. You see what I'm saying? So, it's, but what that first year, I really had to learn, like I grieved. Because honestly, during the time that my parents, me and my dad, I don't believe we had time to grieve between my mama passing and then him getting sick too. So I've grieved. So as far as grieving them, I did what I needed to do. I went to church and I sat in, I got the word, I got fed. I have an amazing pastor, just him making sure that I was okay, the village, my church, and then my circle of friends, them making sure I was okay. But I never stayed at home that first year. I was barely here, and I was just trying to find myself all over again. And I'm doing okay now, but I'm still trying to find, because this is a whole new normal for me with them not being here, especially, with my dad and all that stuff as well. So, yeah, it's most definitely pretty interesting, to try to get used to a new normal, because where I am, this is where I've been all my life. He built this house. Hey, they raised us here, so it's just a lot to deal with.
Yeah, so even in the hardest moments that I watched Candace go through over the past several years, she's always still smiled. If she didn't want to, she was still smiling. If she felt down and discouraged, she'd still, say she loved me. She'd still, be supportive of my wife and I in the church. And she was just, you could tell that no matter what the hard moments that she was going through, that she was still trying to be there for others. And that is really encouraging. Not a lot of people have that in them to do that. Sometimes when people get down and discouraged, they just stay down and they don't want to talk to nobody. They don't want to see nobody. They don't want to be around anybody. And she might have felt that way, but she persevered. She pushed through it, and you couldn't tell, even though you could tell she was going through hard moments. She would still smile. She'd still give me the high five at church. She'd still say she loved me. It was just, you could tell she was still pushing herself through those hard moments, and I'm extremely proud of her for that, because those are hard times for sure. Yeah.
So I am most definitely grateful for my family, my friends, and though my whole village is just around me. Because at one point I didn't know what I was gonna do, I ended up carrying there's always legacy that we have to carry. And my parents were both teachers. So of course I got back in the school system. Yeah. I did. I got back in the school system, and I'm back working with children, and I love the space. Like, I love the space because my coworkers, they're more like family. And it's just a great space to be in. But I'm most definitely grateful of the fact that I'm still living, because most caregivers, like, the stories that I've heard, like, most caregivers don't last after a certain amount. Like, they be ready to go too. And I'm just like, listen, I want to live as long as I can. I want to be present as long as I can, and I want to be that person who makes an impact, you know, to the people that I come across with, that I get in contact with, or we have those conversations as far as being present, you know, for everybody else. But honestly, right now, I'm living in the moment, and I have learned to live in the moment. And that's what I do. I live in the moment, I take my deep breaths, and I move forward of, you know, how I'm supposed to. And a lot of people thought that I would make it, but I'm here. Yeah.